Hello, in this video, I'm going to be talking all about reading. As a homeschool mom, reading is pretty foundational in what we do. We usually start our day and end our day with some kind of reading, whether I'm reading aloud or they're reading books to themselves. It's super important to read, and some of the statistics I found were mind-blowing. So, children who read 20 minutes a day are exposed to almost 2 million words per year and typically, statistically, perform in the 90th percentile on assessments compared to students or children who read 5 minutes and 1 minute a day. It's like astronomical, the differences. It's 90th percentile if they are reading 20 minutes a day, and I think it jumps down to 50th percentile when they read 5 minutes a day, and like 10th percentile when they read 1 minute per day. So it's awesome to expose them to lots of different words, lots of different ways to write, different texts, whether that's looking at a magazine article or reading a comic book or reading a chapter book, listening to a book that is above their level. They can listen to things that are above their level and they can still comprehend it compared to reading the words that should be on or slightly above their level. There's lots of different ways that you can test that. Usually it's if they're reading like a little kid's book, they shouldn't be making more than 5 mistakes on the words, or it kind of takes away from the meaning and they really struggle with comprehending what they're reading. There's lots of resources on that, so I won't get into that in this video, but there is definitely a correlation with an inability to have good literacy and future prison time, which I thought was fascinating and scary at the same time. So if your child is not reading, they are statistically more likely to end up in prison. Isn't that ridiculous? I wouldn't have even thought to make that correlation. But if you think about all the things that reading can give you in life and the different jobs that would be available to you if you're a good reader compared to not being able to read, the differences are astronomical when you look at it that way. And if you don't have a job, you're going to have to find some way to make money. So that kind of is a logical progression of events. I just never thought of that before. So there's lots of reasons to read. If you needed some more, there they are. Reading is such a gift, and reading is learning. I was a former public school teacher, and sometimes I have to like stop myself because my girls are all sitting there reading. Even my 2-year-old is just flipping through, looking at the pictures, making up her own story in her head. And I want to interrupt that with like a lesson that I have or an idea of something that I want to do with them. And I have to stop myself and remind myself that reading is learning, and they are forming tons of connections in their brain. They are doing so much just reading that book, and I need to leave them alone if that's what they're doing. I don't want to interject my idea or my grand lesson that I had for them, because what they're doing is very beneficial. And this is not to shame anyone. Please don't read between the lines. I'm a very literal, straightforward person. I am not at any rate saying if your child's not a good reader that they're going to end up in prison. That was just a crazy thing that I came across when I was researching. This is no shame, no judgment at all. Just sharing what I have found and why reading is important. Reading out loud to kids is also important, because even your kids who might not like to read most likely will like to listen. Even my 5th graders love to listen to me read to them. I would usually read to them after we came back from lunch, and they would love to do it. And sometimes just the way the day worked, we didn't have time or whatever, and they would be so bummed that we had to skip our read aloud time that was like, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes of their day. So even older kids like to read. There's lots of audiobooks available, recordable books. Our library has a ton of different, they're little like audiobooks, and you just plug in like your headphones and you can listen to a book. My daughter loves to do that. There's recordable books that, Wonder Books is what they're called. They're pretty pricey, but our library has quite a stash of them where you just push a button and it reads to you as you turn the page. So that's another great way to get your kids interested in reading if they don't like to actually read. That's kind of a way to expose them to stories and language and different words and different sentence structures. It's also important to keep a variety of books available. You want to make sure that they have lots of things to choose from. Even if you have a small library, this is totally doable. There's lots of different styles of writing. There's lots of different ways that you can get your kids reading. Even if they're looking through like a magazine, they're still being exposed to the way the author of the article structures the sentences, or how different things are laid out in the magazine. They're looking at different pictures. Maybe they're making connections. Maybe they see pictures of people that are showing like emotions on their face. There's so many different things that they can pull even from just flipping through a magazine. And then it just kind of gets them into that. It's almost like that muscle memory of turning a page. Like you want them to be turning the pages. So even if it's just a magazine, hopefully that will get them into that turning the pages of different books later on in life. Our library also has lots of great resources. They do a lot of things over the summer, and then some things for toddlers throughout the year, like a toddler playtime, story time kind of thing. Any way that you can get them, I think, in the library and around books is a win-win. I would just caution you, I tread lightly here, I would just caution you to maybe make sure the books that you're checking out at the library that you have kind of read a little bit before, because we've come home with a few that didn't really sit well with us as far as our beliefs are, and things that we want to expose our children to at their ages. So there are lots of things that have come into our society, and unfortunately they have even infiltrated our library book selection. So I'll just leave it at that. If you're checking out books at the library, I would strongly encourage you to preview them before you take them home. And remember, you're the gatekeeper of your home. So whatever is comfortable for you to let in, make sure you're adding that into your library rotation. That was a surprise, one book that we came home with. So also practice reading with lots of different books. I've mentioned this a couple times in this video: comic books, magazines. You could even do cookbooks, catalogs like Pampered Chef, or I don't know if places still do catalogs. I think everything's online now, but different catalogs that you can look through. Directions if you're driving, or pointing out road signs and having them read them to you. You could play a letter game where you look for certain letters, depending on your age the age of your kids. Look for different letters, like as you're driving around. Look for different signs in the stores. There's lots of ways that you can pull reading into your everyday life, even if it's not just holding a book. There's words and letters literally all around us. So wherever you can pull that in, I'd encourage you to do that. You're just solidifying the importance of reading and how it's necessary for us to be functioning adults. And I just think any skill that we can teach our kids at an earlier age is better. So I hope this video has given you some value.